What is going on, everyone? Welcome into Big Time Football Talk. So I first wanted to start with this. I wanted to touch on Dabo Sweeney's comments. They asked him, about the 12-team playoff that was proposed recently. And Dabo Swinney, always pretty outspoken, always gives his opinion pretty bluntly, said our team wasn't for it. They don't want to play more games. And to be honest with you, I don't think 12 teams are good enough. And first of all, that is, I agree with Dabo Swinney 100%. I'm not in favor of the 12-team playoff. I think it starts to devalue the regular season. I think it's just, it's too many too many games. You're gonna battle with injuries. A lot of times it's just kind of last man standing. You see, in the NFL, there's so many injuries in the playoffs because it's such a long season. Now even the NFL is going longer to 17 games. And if you're Dabo Swinney, it's frustrating because you're a team like that and you work so hard to get to that elite level, and you just have to play more games, chance more players get hurt, and it's just, it's a chance to, it only really hurts the Alabama, Clemsons, and Ohio States because they're already, at that elite level. I just don't agree with the 12-team playoff, like I've said, and it's Dabo Swinney. He's one of he's not the only one saying this. Mac Brown, North Carolina, they didn't seem to be in favor of it, which is interesting because that's a team that you'd think would be helped from this. But they think that this 12-team playoff would keep coaches. Or not get as many coaches fired and give coaches more extra years to try to compete and try to because a playoff appearance is great for a resume and kind of doesn't kind of overlook some of maybe the bad losses or a lot more or wins they should have had against rivals if you keep winning. So But interesting take, or interesting to hear, more guys' opinions, and Dabo Swinney, who's pretty outspoken about it. So, it's good to hear there. So and then the next thing I saw on Twitter about Florida, so there was a ESPN College Football posted, the best team to not win a national championship. And interesting, I saw a lot of people commenting on that, saying the 2019 Ohio State team was the best team to not win it. And I think that's a very good take. I think that team had a very good case. It was just a year where there was two other exceptionally great teams, Clemson who beat them. You look at Trevor Lawrence, Isaiah Simmons, AJ Terrell. They had so many studs on that team, and then LSU, just an exceptional amount of talent, especially on the offensive side of the ball, winning it. And then Ohio State with, just on the defensive side, you had Jeff Okudah, Jordan Fuller, Chase Young, Justin Fields, J.K. Dobbins on the offensive side, and then Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, guys still there. Austin Mack, part of just a crazy depth at the wide receiver core. And I think 2019 Ohio State had a strong case. I think that 0-2 Miami, if you remember, they won in 0-1, and then they had the phantom pass interference against Ohio State in a game that some people argue Miami won because it's just such a late pass interference, but Ohio State pulled it out in 2002. I think I kind of went a little contrary to a lot of the comments. I looked at two teams that had won it prior but returned a ton of guys, and you can make a case were even better that year. They just weren't as hungry, ended up losing a game. That one game they lost was costly. The first team was the 2009 Florida Gators. And this team, it's kind of like people say, if you, if you're the runner-up or you're a team that was really good but you didn't win the championship, people forget about you. I think the 2009 Florida Gators is a tremendous example of that. Because if you remember Florida, that was 2008 was the year with the promise. 2008, Florida returned a lot of guys. I remember 2007, they had, that was when Spikes, Tebow, Hernandez, some of the guys were super young. Who else they had? Dustin Doe, Joe Hayden. And then they came into '08 with a lot of hype. They lost that game early on to Ole Miss. Tim Tebow had the promise, and then they just ran through the rest of their schedule in 2008, beating Oklahoma and Sam Bradford. And, Urban Meyer talked about that was a tremendous offense. Not just not just by his opinion and standards, but statistically, that was one of the best offenses they beat in 2008 in Oklahoma and Sam Bradford. So they won the 2008 national championship. The Florida Gators. They also won the SEC championship. If you remember, they had beat Alabama in the '08 SEC championship. They came back and they returned almost everyone on that offense, except they did lose Percy Harvin. But if they came back with Riley Cooper, Tim Tebow, the Pouncey brothers on the offensive line, Aaron Hernandez. They had just about everyone back, like a team, like an offense with like 8 or 9 starters back. They had so much speed. Jeff Demps, Chris Rainey. With the exception of, Percy Harvin, and I think they lost, maybe 1 or 2 other guys on offense. But, defense, Brandon Spikes back, Joe Hayden back, Major Wright. I'm trying to think. I used to remember all the Carlos Dunlap, and then they came back, started I think they ran through the regular season 12-0, but you remember there were some games where it was kind of close. Tim Tebow got a concussion, and I think it was a Kentucky game, and then they got to the SEC championship versus a very hungry Alabama team, and they got beat by Alabama, and that kind of was when Alabama, the dynasty, was born. But Florida lost that one game to Alabama. It cost them a chance to go to the SEC championship. And then, they were ruled out of the national championship because Alabama got the bid. And then Texas went undefeated that year, narrowly escaping Nebraska in the Ndamukong Suh dominance. So it was Alabama, Texas in the national championship. But there was a strong case that, Florida was even the best team or the second best team. I would say, probably second best team in the nation. You look that year, if there was ever a case for a BCS, rematch, Florida versus Alabama that year. But yeah, that was just a tremendous Florida team. They went on to blow out Cincinnati in the Sugar Bowl the week after. So yeah, the '09 Florida Gators, a team that's kind of forgotten about, but 13-1, just a tremendous dominant season. With just the one key loss keeping them out of the national championship. So. Yeah, and then similarly, another team coached by Urban Meyer that returned a lot of guys from the prior year that won a national championship was the 2015 Ohio State team. If you remember, it's so funny how these stories are so similar. The '08 Florida Gators are very similar to the 2014 Ohio State Buckeyes, because you remember the 2014 Ohio State Buckeyes came in, a lot of hype. 3 tremendous quarterbacks that we learned about. A couple of them later on, but Ohio State, so much talent on defense and offense. Ezekiel Elliott, Joey Bosa, Michael Thomas. I'm trying to think who else they had. They had a younger Denzel Ward. I can't remember. I don't remember if he started or not. It's been a few years now. They had who was that? They had that wide receiver that was a big deep threat. But bottom line, yeah, you have JT Barrett, Braxton Miller, JT Barrett, if you remember, that was the year the quarterbacks got hurt. I can't remember exactly how it happened, but bottom line is they lost to Virginia Tech. I think it was week 2. And then after that, they just ran through the rest of their schedule, beating Bama, upsetting Bama in that national semifinal game in the college football playoffs, and then beat Oregon pretty handily. And then they just looked phenomenal. I mean, their offense, Ezekiel Elliott, his playoff performance was just unreal. He was just, playing out of his mind. Michael Thomas, stud, Joey Bosa. That team just, ran through everyone the rest of the way. It's almost like that, that loss just kind of refocused them. They just got on track and they said, who's ever lining up in front of this week, we're not playing not to lose. We're just going to come at you. We are the aggressor now. We're hungry after that loss. And, it really showed. And then they come back 2015. If you remember, they returned, Braxton Miller, JT Barrett, Cordell Jones. They had all three of those guys. Braxton Miller ended up playing a little bit of wide receiver. And, Zeke was back. They had some, like the 09 Florida Gators, the regular season wasn't super smooth. They almost were upset by Northern Illinois. Even had a game where, they beat Hawaii handily, but they just didn't look very good. You got to remember, it's people talk, their teams should be hungry because they always have new guys coming in. But when you return a lot of starters and, you competed and you were the aggressor, the hunter, whatever terminology you want to be the year before, and you come back the next year and you're just not as, you don't have kind of that drive. It leads to some close games, maybe some injuries. You're not preparing as hard, even though you have a good coach like Urban Meyer. You're still gonna win most of your games, if not all. Yeah, if you remember, they won every game, but then they were upset by Michigan State. Michigan State backup quarterback. There was, they had the terrible play calling that game. Only gave the ball to Ezekiel Elliott like 6 or 7 times. They end up losing that game in the rain. Michigan State with a walk-off field goal. I think that was, if you look back, might have been one of the bigger upsets in Big Ten history. If you think about it, Michigan State was a great football team that year. Not to take anything away from them, but it was kind of, they were kind of having that Cinderella run where they were kind of just escaping narrowly in every game, and then Ohio State ends up losing that, and then they blow out Notre Dame in the bowl game, finishing 13-1 like the 09 Florida Gators. But when you look back on it, it was still a tremendous season. It was just a team that was loaded with talent, not quite as hungry, and then stumbled upon the way. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. I thought that was I thought those were super interesting to talk about. So next thing, I'll get into is Nick Saban. Just talking about how he's always been a leader, and not sure what he's going to do after football. And I talked with my dad. I said, it's going to be interesting to see what Alabama looks like after Saban. It's it could be. It's one of those things where it seems like a super far-fetched idea now, but could Alabama really take a step back and not be a dominant team at some point? It's it's kind of weird to think because they've been dominant for so long, and without Nick Saban on the sidelines, you never know. It's always it's one of those things where sometimes a team's dominant for a long time and then they lose a coach like Nick Saban, and they kind of just go downhill, and they never really come back to be the same program. Maybe kind of like USC since Pete Carroll's left, they've been a pretty solid program. They've actually had some good even arguably great seasons. When Sam Darnold was there, winning the SEC title the Pac-12 title back in 2017. So they have some years where they snuck in there. Still very competitive because they recruit as a very powerful brand, but just not quite as dominant as they were under Pete Carroll between especially like 2002 through 2005. I mean, that was when USC was just recruiting at a phenomenal level, and they used to say every teams would not even recruit the Los Angeles area. I think even UCLA had trouble recruiting the Los Angeles area because it was just kind of teams knew that USC was going to get whoever they wanted from the Los Angeles area, so you might as well just kind of forget that. And it even carried on through 2008 too, when they had that just phenomenal linebacking core and defensive line. You had Clay Matthews, Brian Cushing, Ray Maluga all in the same football team. So, but just interesting to see what they'll look like. But I'm excited for SEC Media Days has been going on, and I'm just so excited for the SEC this year. I think the SEC East is super interesting. I actually think Florida could be the favorite to win it. It seems like Georgia's kind of the favorite, but I think Georgia might be too much of the common pick. And, I think Florida's overlooked. I think Emory Jones could be a star quarterback for Florida. Florida's they're always going to put up points with Dan Mullen. And I love it. I love a team with an offensive-minded coach. I think Dan Mullen was just a perfect fit for the Florida Gators because their defense had been good for several years. It was one of those things where if you just combine some sort of offensive play with their phenomenal defense, you lead to Florida having success. And Florida's been right there. If you look back even a few years to Jim McElwain, they've been right there, and they always have talent at the skill position, speed on defense. They always have a few NFL guys on the defensive side of the ball, even if they're not very good. So I think Florida is going to be my pick to win the SEC East, but Georgia's still going to be very dangerous, and Kentucky pretty solid. I think the East is pretty respectable, but so. It should be a fun SEC season. LSU is going to have a lot of guys back. Might be the best cornerback tandem in the country, Eli Ricks and Derek Stingley. And, they should be good. Whoever's quarterback and whatever their offense looks like, for LSU, should be very interesting. SEC football is, one of my favorites to watch. And should be another exciting year. I think Alabama, they lost a lot of guys on offense, but this is a defense that's going to be very experienced. Will Anderson back, Malachi Moore made an impact as a freshman. Josh Jobe returns at corner, so they have some key pieces back on the defensive side of the ball. So it should be exciting. Yeah, and then I'll turn to some NFL news. Cam Akers, Rams running back, ruled out with a torn Achilles, will miss the 2021 season. I think this is a tough blow for the Rams because if you look at it, it was a year where Cam Akers was really set up to shine, and he did such a great job the last few games of the year, really getting after it, and really just getting better and better. If you look early on, I think he was kind of unsure of himself, not playing with a lot of confidence, not hitting the hole, hard enough, and not, trusting his blocks. And, just at the end of the year, just kept playing better and better. But, losing him is a tough blow. But, I think Matthew Stafford and his ability to, excel in this offense with McVay. I have such confidence in that even though they've lost, some pieces in, Akers and Everett and, one of the offensive line, I think I still trust the Rams to, have a lot of success offensively, and the Rams defense is going to be solid. When you have two star players like Ramsey and Aaron Donald on that defense, they lost John Johnson, but this is a team that has so much depth at safety. Taylor Rapp's a good ball player. Jordan Fuller made an impact as a rookie. When you have so much, when you have a couple superstars on defense and you got a good coach and you're going to have a quarterback in that offense that can really throw the ball on a rope and get the ball to playmakers and hopefully not make mistakes. I think that I think the Rams will be fine. It is tough because now running the ball is an identity, and I think with Stafford they're not going to running the ball isn't going to be as much of an emphasis. I think that they're going to be more of a passing team anyways, but having the Akers, that is another thing the defense has to account for that's just super tough to try to account for Akers' running ability with a true 4.4 speed and Stafford ability to set up the play action, go in motion. So tough blow to the Rams losing Cam Akers for the season. I wish Cam Akers a speedy recovery. Still has a guy that has a very bright future, and I was super excited about Cam Akers coming out of Florida State. He's a good football player, and so we'll see what the Rams look like in 2021. Sadly, moving forward without Cam Akers at running back, so it'll be interesting to see what the Rams look like in 2021. Missing some pieces they had last year in 2020. So But yeah, guys, I think I'm gonna wrap at that. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Big Time Football Talk. Stay tuned for more episodes and clips from the show. Till next time, peace.